We've got a lot to go through, so let's get to it. Hello, loves. All right, so this is going to be my first ever mid-year book freak out tag. I'm really excited about this. I actually am also supposed to be doing a booktube newbie. I don't know. I don't know what it's called, but the booktuber newbie tag, that video should come out soon too. I'm trying to catch up on all of these tags. Hopefully you enjoy this. I actually am not freaking out because, surprise, surprise, I have reached my goal for the year already. Not sure how that happened because the last year that I was really active in reading, I only got to 60 or something, so this is really exciting. Anyway, we'll see. Maybe I can double that. I'm not expecting to read another 100 books by the end of the year, so I imagine maybe 150? We'll see, we'll see. So I guess we should get into this tag. Question number 1 is the best book you've read so far in 2021, and I actually have 2 here because one is kind of a cheat. My first thought ended up being Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. This one's kind of a cheat because I technically read it at the end of 2020, and then I reread it this year because I was very fortunately gifted this, and I absolutely loved it. I loved it even more on the second read. Definitely recommend the audiobook. This is a book about grief and family and lies, but it's done in such a beautiful way. It is written in verse, so basically kind of a story of spoken words, but it is a narrative. It's so beautiful. I really, really recommend it. Really love this one. Now, because I feel kind of weird having my best book of 2021 be a book that I first read in 2020, I wanted to include another book that I really enjoyed, which is You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. And this is actually a YA. I tend to try to avoid YAs as much as possible, but they tend to creep into my reading anyway. But this one I was really happy with. So it's got like a sapphic romance. It's about coming to terms with oneself, figuring oneself out. Why can I not think of the words? I'm so bad when it comes to speaking sometimes, but yeah, this is a coming of age book. That's what I was trying to say. Editing me here, You Should See Me in a Crown is about a girl who ends up losing her band scholarship at the last minute and is desperate to go to basically her dream college, and her school is really big on prom, and they end up giving a scholarship to the prom king and queen. So despite that not being her area, she is kind of convinced to run for prom queen, and it's that experience and a lot of things that happen along the way, and it's a beautiful coming of age with a sapphic little romance, and highly recommend it. For the second question, we've got the best sequel that you read in 2021, and this one I kind of had a hard time with because I'm not the biggest fan of series, and I also haven't been reading a lot. I took a bit of a reading break for a while and have just recently got back into reading and enjoying audiobooks and doing that while I'm working on things and all of that stuff. So I didn't have any series that I was already reading, and then all of the ones that I have read, I kind of just read them in one go. So I decided that I would use the Defy the Stars trilogy because I read the first one, second, and third all in one reading vlog, I believe, which I'll have that link down below. Basically everything that I'm sharing with you either already has a review, reading vlog, or a wrap-up of some sort where I talk about them, and I will try to include those if you'd like to see my actual thoughts about them along with some other books. But this one is a sci-fi YA that basically questions artificial intelligence and whether or not a artificial conscious is human, basically. There's a romance, there's world saving, there's a lot of different characters that you go in, and I absolutely adored it. I loved it so much. The only thing that I wasn't a fan of is the fact that the main character is 17. I could relate to her until they mentioned her age, and I'd be like, yeah, really? Are you sure? really enjoy this aside from that one bit. And I think I rated all of these 5 stars. So this is probably one of my like favorite series. Okay, next up is new releases that you haven't read yet but want to. First off, I have A Chorus Rises by Bethany C. Mara, which is the second book to the A Song Below Water book series. I don't know how many books are supposed to be in this, but this is book 2. These go together. I really enjoyed the first one, even more than I thought I would. So as soon as I finished this one, I pre-ordered this one and got it recently, and I'm hoping to read it sometime soon. I would like to find some time to fit this into my reading schedule. And then another book is Accidentally Engaged. I actually got an e-arc of this off of NetGalley, and I started reading it, really enjoyed it, and then kind of got really busy and wasn't able to finish it, and then it came out and I ordered it. So I'm like halfway through this book and I'm really liking it, but I do need to finish it at some point. Next book is Biggest Disappointment, and it's for this one, I ended up picking The Maidens by Alex Michaelides, and this one was so disappointing because I really, really enjoyed it for a good part of it, and felt just disappointed by how it turned out, how it wrapped up, how some things kind of just didn't fully make sense, how some things seemed rushed. Like, I was very, very disappointed in the end, which is funny because overall I do think that this is a decent book. It gets a lot of 5-star reviews and I can see why, but I was disappointed. And I think that's why this is as disappointing to me as it is. Like, it's not my lowest rated book. I did think of rating it 2 stars because I was so mad, but I actually think it ended up being a 3 stars because I did like a lot of it. But yeah, this was still pretty upsetting. So this is a psychological thriller basically about a serial killer that happens in a dark academia setting at a school, and there's like this teacher involved and these girls called the Maidens that are connected with him, and there's a woman who kind of goes in to try and figure out what's going on because her niece was connected to one of the girls that got killed. So it's kind of like a murder mystery type of thing with a psychological thriller aspect to it. And it has really nice dark academia vibes. I love the way it's written and the storytelling. I was very interested in the main character. She's an older woman, which was really nice, but I was also a little bit confused about that. And I do think the concept was interesting, but I just don't think it was executed very well, which was sad. So I would love to hear other people's thoughts on this one. Then the next one is Biggest Surprise. I ended up picking They Both Die at the End. I don't know if this is the most fitting for this, but this is a book that I ended up having on my wish list that was very kindly gifted to me, and I picked it up because I think I heard some kind of review about it. It sounded good. I didn't know what it was about, but I popped it in my wish list because it sounded interesting, and I am so glad that I did, because when I got it, I was all like, oh, this is gonna be cool, I'll like it, thinking that it'd probably be just like a 4-star, maybe a 3-star, it would be a good time. I had no clue exactly how much I would enjoy this book, but boy did I enjoy this book. So when I mentioned earlier that there was another book on this list that may be up there in the best books that I read this year, this is that book. I highly recommend this book. I think that Adam Silvera did a beautiful job talking about mortality and just what it is to be alive, and you know, the people that you love, and it's a beautiful book. This is such a good book. So highly recommend this one. Next one is new favorite author. So I'm reading a bunch of different types of books, but my love in general is romance. And I ended up reading Talia Hibert for the first time this year. I actually read all of the 3, but yeah, I absolutely loved the Brown Sister trilogy. Super sweet, super adorable, super cute, hot and steamy. A lot to love. So this one is up there for me. In addition to that, I also ended up reading, I believe I read all of these this year, but I read all of these Riley Sager books, which I really, really enjoyed. I believe 3 of these are 5 stars, and then this one was a 4-star because I'm really into haunted houses, spooky books, and I think I was just expecting too much. So this one was a little bit of a letdown, but it was still pretty good. So I ended up giving it 4 stars, while the other ones, I don't know, they were just very enjoyable, totally up that alley. In addition to that, I also read a ton of V.E. SCHWAB or Victoria SCHWAB books this year, and really, really enjoyed these. Surprisingly, I actually don't think too many of these are 5 stars. I think these are all 4 5s, and I think this one is a 3-star. But yeah, I really enjoy her writing. There's a lot to love, I feel like, with Victoria SCHWAB, and I'm very excited and interested to read more books from her moving forward. Next one is Newest Fictional Crush, and I actually have a hard time with this. I don't really crush too much over the characters in the books that I read, even though I do enjoy them quite a bit. I will say I feel like, if anything, these books all had characters that I really love. I absolutely adored Abel in this one. I do love the romances in both of these, and although this one may have been one of my favorite romances out of the 3, I think he is probably my biggest crush. So Zaph from Take a Hint, Danny Brown is the one that popped to mind first, and then after pulling these guys out, I was like, oh yeah, but Abel. So I don't know, that's kind of where I'm at when it comes to crushes. All right, newest favorite character, I think, is actually going to be Addie LaRue from The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I loved her. I really admired her, what she put up with, how stubborn I feel like she is, and also a little clever. I don't know, there was something that I really enjoyed, and I tend to really like books that focus on more mature characters as somebody in their 30s. So I was a fan of reading this book about a 300-year-old. Next one is Book That Made You Cry. And the real question is, what book didn't make me cry? I actually don't even think that's all of them. But yeah, I cry a lot in books. That's kind of one of my favorite things. There were a ton of really good books that I read this year that had me bawling. I would highly recommend The Sun Does Shine by Anthony Ray Hinton, which is actually a nonfiction book about how he found life and freedom on death row, a Black man falsely accused of murder, who gets convicted and is put on death row, and it's his experience and his life in jail basically for a crime he didn't commit, and it's very heartbreaking. There are also some really touching and emotional moments in here, and yeah, it's a hard one, but I do recommend it. It does touch on some very interesting topics, and he seems to be a very loving man. He's also very religious, so keep that in mind. Then I ended up crying in Monday's Not Coming, which is a story about a girl whose best friend goes missing. Nobody notices. She cares. No one's listening to her. And it's not an easy book. This is a book that I feel like I need to read again, because there is something that kind of happens that I feel like I may have missed, and I'd like to see how it was, woven into the story, but I did really enjoy it, and it did make me cry. And then the other 2 new ones, Long Way Down, which is a story about a Black man whose brother gets shot and killed, and he goes to avenge him, and on his way down elevator ride, he ends up meeting a bunch of people that basically talk about their life experiences. And yeah, this was a touching one that I wasn't expecting. This is another one that's written in verse. It's actually a really quick read. I recommend. And then the last one was Pet by Akwaeke Emezi, and this one is, I believe it's a middle grade, but I think this was beautifully done. We have a transgender main character who ends up getting a monster friend called Pet, basically, in a world where all of the horrible things that we're used to in this world doesn't exist anymore, but we kind of find out through Pet that there are some things that they aren't expecting, that monsters do still exist or something along those lines. And I feel like this was beautifully done. It was very emotional, very highly rated, and I would highly recommend. All right, next up we have Book That Makes You Happy. And admittedly, I kind of had a hard time with this. I think there was a couple of books that I did feel like made me happy, but nothing that really stood out. So I figured probably one of the romance, you know, like this whole series would fall into that category. But one book that I absolutely adored was Make a Scene by Mimi Grace. And this is a fake dating romance, which was really sweet. I really liked the characters. I really liked the relationship. It felt really feel good. It was a feel good book, and I really enjoyed this one. Next up is the most beautiful book that you have bought or received, and that's kind of hard. I feel like I got a lot of really beautiful books, but two that I really enjoyed are The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Ningbo and When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain by Ningbo. These were short, like, novellas that are really enjoyable. I really liked them. I believe this one was a 5-star and this was a 4-star read for me. I really like the stories in them, and the covers are gorgeous, especially this one. This one's a favorite all around. All right, and then the last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Since I've completed my reading goal, I don't actually feel like I have any books that I need to read by the end of the year, but I do have some books that I'm putting off until October because I did want to do spooky-ish books. So I do hope that I will get to these books at some point. We've got Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. Then we also have Mexican Gothic, which is supposed to be like a spooky house horror-y type book, which I'm excited about. And this is by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. And then lastly, one of the ones I've been super anticipating, so I really hope I enjoy this, and that is The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. So excited, getting some witchy books and spooky vibes. I don't think any of those are supposed to actually be scary, but they should fit into Halloween, October vibes, and I'm here for it. And yeah, that is everything in the tag. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to thumbs up, include this emoji if you made it this far, subscribe if you haven't already and you'd like to see more bookish content, especially POC rep, and I will see you in the next video. Until next time, bye!